If you're obsessing over a guy, then this one's for you. Let's say you had 1 or 2 dates with this person and all of a sudden you just can't wait for them to text you and you're anxious and you're sitting by your phone. Is it because they're so empathetic and compassionate and understanding and emotionally available? Or are they just fucking tall?
Welcome, brothers. Today we're going to watch a video to explain a problem that modern women have been facing lately when they fall for Chad, this man who creates a roller coaster of emotions for her, where she develops very strong feelings towards him. This phenomenon apparently has a name. It's called limerence. We'll see how modern women explain why they feel such strong attraction towards someone. But before we move on, brothers, we want you to support us in our goal for the coming months of reaching 50,000 subscribers. We want our family to keep growing. So support us with your subscription and like the video, as this helps YouTube recommend our content more. Don't forget to leave us your comments. Without further ado, let's begin.
Do you have a crush on them, or is it an unhealthy psychological phenomenon called limerence? My name is Christina, I study psychology at Yale, and if you tend to get kind of obsessed with people who are unattainable, here's a psychological phenomenon that explains it. Psychologist Dorothy Tenev described this phenomenon as almost an obsession, but this obsession thrives on unattainability. Say your friend John has a really cute friend who lives in Spain. You met him once in passing, but nothing more. And since then, you've been following him, checking up on his stories, on his socials, fantasizing about the future when you go to Spain and him showing you around. Now that is limerence. And what I mean by it thrives on unattainability is that deep down inside, on a subconscious level, you know that it can never work out for whatever obstacle, whether it be like a physical obstacle, you living in 2 different places, maybe them having a partner, etc., etc. But however, you continue to fantasize, romanticize this person. You're not actually basing your liking on them as a person, you're basing your liking on this potential or this idea that you've created in your head, and that is a limerence. We've all probably experienced this, but the root cause goes down really deep to attachment theory based in your childhood. If you tend to have these obsessions with people you barely know and build them up in your head, knowing that it's probably not a viable option, deep down inside, you're probably not emotionally available. So ask yourself this question: do you actually like them, or could it be a limerence?
Women always find a way to label any phenomenon they experience as some kind of attachment, instead of admitting that they like men who are unattainable for them. This is more evident in women who get involved with Chad, a man who brings nothing to the table other than his seed. This man creates a roller coaster of emotions for her. He mistreats her, humiliates her, and sometimes even hits her, but she continues to love this man. We see this all the time, women leaving stable men to go back to their exes, or leaving the nice guy, the type who gives her everything, the white knight, better known as the beta provider. We see women, and you think this man loves her, he gives her everything, puts her on a pedestal, and yet she ends up cheating on him with a man who is sometimes not even half the person her husband is, but who treats her badly, knocks her off her pedestal. If she likes this man in bed, he tells her to leave her house at 2 in the morning. She even makes up an emergency to her husband to go see this man. But as I tell you, brothers, she suffers from limerence. So now you know.
Here are some signs or physical symptoms of limerence. Limerence is where you have this very intense desire, infatuation, or obsession with a person that usually is uncontrollable. A sign of limerence is this very strong need for reciprocation from the other person of equally strong feelings. Also feeling very elated when there is reciprocation and absolute devastation when there's not. You also tend to have very intrusive, constant thoughts about this person, like 24/7. You usually have a lack of clarity who they are. Your life is usually deprioritized while your relationship with them is centered. You become really emotionally dependent on any little reaction from them. Some physical symptoms of limerence include anxiety, stress, sweating, stammering, having a racing heart or heart palpitation, feeling really insecure, or changing your style or behaviors to be more likable to them.
Brothers, these are not the same symptoms of a person who is in love. When a woman is in love with a man, she becomes kinder, more feminine, wants to spend more time with that man. She even starts to like his scent. But now, it's considered a disorder. So what is normal and what is not? In this society, every problem a person has turns into some kind of disorder. So, does every simp who follows unattainable women on Instagram have this disease? The closest they'll ever get to these women is when they buy content on their Blue app, because they'll never see these women in real life. Brothers, women will always find a way to disguise their unchecked emotions for Chad as a disorder, rather than admitting that this uncontrollable man, who takes her on that emotional roller coaster, is the man she truly likes.
How to cure limerence. So for those of you that don't know, limerence is something that we all kind of go through when we first start dating someone. It's the phase of we're infatuated with them, we think they're really cool, we think about what our future with them is like, but I find that when you go into a state of limerence for a prolonged period of time, it is actually very detrimental to your health. I'm just going to speak from my experience with it. Basically, when you're in a state of limerence for a prolonged period of time, you can stop eating, you're constantly thinking about them, you're constantly obsessing over them. If they reject you, you get really, really upset. It's kind of similar to like BPD's favorite person. I find we get into this state for a long period of time when we're constantly looking for the love outside of ourselves, when we are actually the ones that are meant to fill that void that we're so desperately trying to fill with somebody else. I like to think of people as additions to life, or basically like the spice in a recipe. They just make life a little bit better, but if you put too much spice in it or too much of the wrong spice, it can throw off the whole recipe. A lot of times we occupy our life and our mental state with people because we are avoiding something within ourselves. So I would say the first place that I would start when trying to heal limerence is to ask yourself what you're trying to avoid so much, what you're trying to distract yourself with, and what you actually need. The things we search for outside of ourselves are actually the things that we need to be searching for within. You also need to be researching about anxious attachment because they kind of go hand in hand. I think it's very important to understand that regardless how somebody is treating us, whether it's really amazing or whether it's absolutely awful, that we are accountable for our own thoughts, and being in a state of limerence is a self-created problem. Unless you have manifested everything you can ever desire in this lifetime, then you have no time to be obsessing over somebody else, which means that you need to get busy. People who are suffering from limerence, like, you need to add more hobbies. You need to add another job. You need to distract yourself because limerence is honestly cured over time and with separation. You need to be reminded that without this object of obsession, life is going to continue on and you still have to live it. So when I was in a very intense limerence state over the summer, I ended up going to Europe for the month of June, like the entire month, and all of those feelings literally went away. Especially if the person is toxic, you need to initiate separation because I'm telling you, like, it will literally go away. You are not in love with this person. It is just an infatuation with them and what you think that the relationship could have been. And you really need to ask yourself why it is that you're trying to turn a dog into a cat. There is no problem being a hopeless romantic and wanting to be in a super cute relationship and want somebody to love you, but why are you trying to put that story onto somebody who literally does not fit the picture? And overall, just be nice to yourself. You're not going to shame yourself out of limerence. Dating is very similar to interviewing for a job. You're going to make sure that the person is a good fit to do the job, and if they're not, you're going to let them loose so that somebody can come in and actually do it properly. That obsession you are having with somebody else is not meant for them. It is meant for you. It is meant for your purpose. It is meant for your art. You need to work on your self-worth and your self-concept, and overall just get busy and allow these feelings to subside themselves. I hope this video somewhat helped, and if you want me to make more videos about this, I can definitely go on for hours. Bye!
Brothers, always keep in mind that if a woman doesn't treat you as the best option she can have, then leave that relationship because you were simply her better than nothing. It's that modern women today try to label everything they do. Nothing that the modern woman feels or does today is considered normal. Everything must have a new term. It's like a video we saw where modern Western women said they now wanted to be soft girls, women who marry a good man, take care of the home and children, perform acts of service for their husband, so they have time to go to the gym, have tea dates with friends, and lead a relaxed life. What does that remind you of, brothers? What we've always been saying about having a submissive and feminine woman. But she always has to find a different name for it, to say it was a movement created by her. Now, this crazy infatuation is called limerence, this love for Chad, which they can't control and makes them do everything for this man, not caring if he degrades them or simply uses them, as long as they can be part of this man's life. Brothers, be aware of the modern woman, because we know she doesn't like to take responsibility for her actions. As I said, if she doesn't treat you as the best option she can have, then get out of there.
Are you so obsessed with someone that you cannot stop thinking about them 24/7? You might not even have had much interaction with them. There may be no prospect that you have a relationship with them, and you may not even have any contact with them on a regular basis, but you still are obsessing over them, and you're daydreaming all day. You're thinking about what's happened, any small interactions you've had with them, what they might mean, what might happen in the future. Maybe I can prove myself, all these thoughts, but you know that you're living in a fantasy the vast majority of the time, and you're stuck in those fantasies. This is called limerence. I help people with limerence, so if you need help with this kind of thing, check out my YouTube channel. It's in my profile on TikTok, and I have a website where I offer support for people with limerence.
Brother, men who idolize a woman are the ones who never get her. Remember, he who shows too much hunger never eats. Women don't like men who are overly devoted to them, men who treat them like a queen when they've done nothing to deserve it. Obsessing over someone you don't know is a simp's behavior. Men who don't have options end up being dragged around by a woman. We see this on Instagram. Men who follow women and pay attention to all their photos, men who send tips to women on the Blue app, buy subscriptions to feel closer to these women. Only a simp does that. Brother, fall in love with a woman you can actually interact with. It's better to try and be rejected than to remain a doormat or in the friend zone. Stop idolizing women who lose their beauty with each passing year.
So even though I'm an ex-doctor, the first thing I want to say is that I am not a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist, and I am not a subject matter expert on limerence. I just heard about an interesting word, read a study on it, and shared it with you guys. But so many of you want to know what the treatment is for this condition, and that's the study I read about. This is the study that I read, and what they were trying to do with this study is propose a treatment for a 28-year-old individual who was experiencing limerence. Literally, the first line of the study says that limerence is an under-researched condition, which basically means take the results of this study and everything else you read with a pinch of salt, because not enough scientific research has been done on it. But I'm going to quickly tell you about the treatment they used here. So the first thing to know is that this is not just like your regular kind of crush. This is something that researchers have drawn parallels to with OCD and substance use disorder. There's like a serious compulsion and obsession going on here when it comes to how you feel about this limerent object or this person that you're obsessed with. Because there's such little research on limerence and clinical descriptions of it and how to treat it, this study has kind of proposed that you kind of have to make an educated guess, because it's so close to OCD, that you can reasonably use treatment for OCD to try and treat limerence. And the treatment they used here is called exposure response prevention, ERP, which is a type of OCD treatment. Basically exposes you to the thing that you fear and then stops you from doing the rituals that make you feel better about it or that reduce your anxiety. In the case of limerence, the study says that you imagine that the feared thing is that you are separated from or rejected by your limerent object or the person that you're obsessed with, basically. So for this study, they treated a 28-year-old single white cisgender female, and they gave her 45 minutes of individual psychotherapy sessions once every 2 weeks for a certain treatment period time. And the results of the case study basically show that exposure response prevention alongside some other cognitive behavioral therapies worked well in reducing the number of compulsions and distorted beliefs of an individual with self-diagnosed limerence. Even though this type of therapy worked for this individual, this is a single case study, so we can't draw really big scientific conclusions from this, but it does say further research is imperative to address the gap, because a lot of mental health practitioners don't even know about limerence, and there's really not a lot of research done on this.
An ex-doctor in few words speaks about a reasonable experience. But moving on from that, I wonder what a person must feel who becomes obsessed with someone they don't even know. You don't know if they're a bad person, you have no idea if they speak well, you have no clue about their behavior, and yet you end up falling in love with someone just because in your imagination they are perfect. Brothers, this is what men without options do. It's like the guy who gets a girl's number, talks to her for 3 days, and already wants to marry her because she's the only woman he talks to. This woman could easily make his life a nightmare, but he stays in love, giving his all, because I always tell men it's good to flirt with several women. When you choose one, it's because she fits well into your life, not because she's the only option you have. And you, brothers, have you ever had this ailment? We've reached the end of the video, but before we go, the questions are for you. What do you think about limerence? Do you think you've ever had limerence for someone? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to create more content. Stay tuned for the next exciting video from The Wall.